All right, this is 8th grade, Module 4, Lesson 18. There is only one line passing through a given point with a given slope. All right, so we're going to look at these exercises here below. Examine each of the graphs and their equations. Identify the coordinates of the point where the line intersects the y-axis. Describe the relationship between the point and the equation for y equals mx plus b. So as we learned in the previous lesson, the m is the slope. So it's the number in front of x gives me my slope. So they already told us our slope here, but just to verify, let's make sure this is our rise and our run. So I can pick any of these points. If you notice, we can go up 1 and run 2, rise 1, run 2, rise 1, run 2. So you'll see that it creates like a stair-step effect. So obviously, yes, this is the slope of the line. But the question here is asking, where did it cross this y-intersect, or the line? And that y-intersect is called B. All right, so where does the line cross the y-axis? So I'm actually going to erase what I have here just so you can see it a little more clearly. This is our y-axis. So if you go straight down the line, we hit a point. It's that one right there. That's where the y-axis has been crossed by this line. What is the coordinate of that? So we go 0, 3. The coordinate is 0, 3. And if you notice, 3 is our B. So B represents the number that crosses here. It crossed at the 3, so that's our B. B is also sometimes referred to as your starting point. So sometimes when you have to graph your own line, you can always find your B and go up, hit the dot. By the way, it's always going to be 0 because that's where the X and the Y connect, and it has to cross that line, so X will always be 0. You find your number, and then you go with your slope. So I would have then gone, I'm going to rise, run 1, and then run 2. And that would have given me my second dot, and then I could have drawn the line. All right, so let's see the next one. Now this one has a negative slope. So this is a positive slope, this is a negative slope. Now, a negative slope means that we have a negative number. So negative 3 over 1 we can put. So I'm going to drop 3 and run 1. Drop 3, then run 1. Okay? Now, this question here is not asking us for our slope. I'm just showing you that that's how our slope is negative 3. Where did it cross this y line? So I'm going to go straight down, and it crossed it right there. What number is that? That's 7. And that's also our B. So again, our 7. What are the coordinates? 0, 7. And again, it's always 0 and then the number. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the next one here. Go to C. C again is a negative slope. All right, so you can see that our slope is a negative 2/3, which means we're dropping 2, running 3. Okay, I want you to tell me where it crossed that y line. So you're going to look right down this y line and see where it crossed and give me the coordinates of that. So go ahead and do C and D. Now, example 1, we have a blank graph. Now we actually need to graph this. So if you remember, I told you this is where we start. So whenever you have a blank graph, you need to start somewhere. You can't just go, oh, I'm going to go up 2 and run 3 from just any old point. You have to have a starting point. Now our starting point in this sense is going to be 0, 1 because it's always 0. So I'm going to go 0, 1, and there's my starting point. Now from that point, I'm going to rise 2, and I'm going to run 3. And that's going to give me my next dot. Now you're going to grab a ruler and you just connect those dots. And that's it. So we're going to say our slope was 2, 3, and the B was 0, 1. All right, I'm going to let you try that for examples 2 and 3. All right, exercise here, number 1. We're going to graph this equation and name the slope and the y-intercept. Now, on your graph paper, I'm going to have you just draw a quick little graph. You can just draw like an L-shaped coordinate since these are all positive. And go ahead and graph that. Just make sure you label your graph paper to be exercises 1. But I don't need to graph this to answer this question, what is my y-intercept and what is my slope? My y-intercept's right there. Oh, excuse me, my slope is right there. My y-intercept is right there. So my slope is 5 over 2. And my b, known as my y-intercept, is going to be 0, -4. You want to make sure you carry that negative with it because that's going to tell you that's down there in the negative area. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to let you finish the rest of this section all the way up until number 5. So go ahead and pause this video and I'll meet you on number 5. All right, so we're here on number 5. A bank put $10 into a savings account when you open the account. 8 weeks later, you have a total of $24. Assume you save the amount of money every week. If Y is the total amount of money in the savings account and X represents the number of weeks, write an equation to form the Y equals mx plus b situation. All right, so at the end of this week, we have totaled $24. So that's going to be our Y. Our Y is our total. Now, this was over a duration of 8 weeks. So 8 weeks. Now, we don't know how many weeks, so we're going to represent that by X. But we do know we started with $10 in our account. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and find out what X equals. They want to know how many weeks. What are the number of weeks? So in order to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that 10. I'm going to move the 10. What's the opposite of adding 10? Subtracting 10. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides, and those cancel. 24 take away 10 is going to give me 14 and bring down my 8x. I'm going to move that over here. Again, we're looking for what x equals. So now I need to divide out that 8. So I'm going to swoop that 8 underneath this 14 and divide that out. Now, if I divide it, I'm going to get a decimal or a fraction, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to go ahead and reduce this since it's sort of a ratio type problem because it's every week, a certain amount of money. We can use a ratio here. So I'm looking for a number that can divide into both 14 and 8, and that would give me 2. So 2 goes into 14 7 times, and 2 goes into 8 4 times, and this is what x is going to equal. So now I can actually put together my full y equals mx plus b. So we're going to say y equals our 7/4, that's now my slope, times the number of weeks plus that $10 that we started with. And there is my answer. Now, B says, identify the slope and the y-intercept. All right, well, that's easy. Our slope is 7/4, and our y-intercept is going to be 10, which we're going to write as 0, 10. 0, 10 is our start. This is what we started with or where we're going to start the graph. 7/4 is $1.75. That represents the $1.75 if you divided that out. And then I'm going to let you go ahead and graph it, and I'll meet you on D. So D says, could any other line represent the situation? for instance, could we start at 0, 10 and have a slope of 7, 5 and get the same line? Now, if we noticed before, we had the slope of 7, 4. So they're saying if we had this 7, 5x plus 10, would I receive the same line? Well, you don't need to graph this. It's very simple. If you don't have the same slope, are you going to have the same steepness? No. So the fact that they changed the slope here automatically makes it a no. So we're going to say no. The slope is different, which will give us a completely different graph. You may start at the same point, but the graph will steep at a different altitude. All right. Now for the rest of this worksheet, number 6, I'm going to let you do all that, and those will be problems that I grade. So this ends this tutorial.